Hello, my name is Kevin Maher, and this week's Beyond the Bay virtual film series feature is Citizen Kane. Orson Welles' Citizen Kane was considered the greatest film ever made for more than 60 years, according to regular polls conducted by the British film magazine Sight and Sound. It has been talked about, imitated, and debated for the entirety of its 80-year existence. At its core, the film is about a larger-than-life man who, through hubris, greed, and cruelty, leads a life of wonder before dying alone. The film's creation, its artistry, and its place in film history has created countless books, documentaries, and television programs that have kept the film in the public's consciousness. What makes Citizen Kane so good? Why wasn't it a huge hit when it was released? And why do so many film scholars and film fans still want to talk about it? For me, the answer to all three questions lies in the mystique of Orson Welles, the co-writer, director, producer, and star of the film. Like Kane, Welles was a larger-than-life figure who had created a myth about himself that preceded him to Hollywood at the age of 24. He was a wonderkind who had directed award-winning plays, turned America on its ear with a radio production about an alien invasion, and signed the most artist-friendly contract in Hollywood history. That he had never been on a movie set, looked through the viewfinder of a camera, or written a screenplay only fed into his outsized image. But it also created resentment and jealousy within the Hollywood community that would have a long-lasting impact on his career. So why is the film so good? Even though Welles generally tried to claim credit for every word that made it onto the screen in Kane, he was smart enough to collaborate with veteran Hollywood screenwriter Herman J. Mankiewicz. Mank, as he was known, had been writing and rewriting scripts since the silent days and was a student of structure, initiating the idea to have Oz shot in color while working on The Wizard of Oz, and creating the framing device in Kane that had the story told by multiple characters looking back at his life. Welles certainly improved on Mankiewicz's script while in production, but without its somewhat unique structure, the words wouldn't have mattered as much. With a script in hand, Welles turned towards building a top-level production crew to guide him through capturing Kane's story on film. Sometimes what a genius doesn't know is as important as what they do know. Case in point, with Welles cherry-picking the best craftsmen Studio RKO had under contract, including cinematographer Greg Toland, editor Robert Wise, art director Perry Ferguson, and composer Bernard Herrmann. Combined, the group would claim 21 Oscar nominations and 7 wins, but none for Citizen Kane. What each artist brought to Kane, however, was the ability to interpret and execute Welles' specific ideas for how Kane should look and sound. Overlapping dialogue was created in editing to give the film a constant sense of motion. Low camera angles gave Kane an imposing stature, while at the same time set ceilings closed in the space. Deep focus photography, that is having the entire depth of field in focus for particular shots, gave the film a grandiosity and a sense of immensity and importance. Similarly, the lighting and set design evoked feelings and emotions that reflected the mood of the characters, the place in the narrative, and the sense of what was to happen. Welles' genius and the film's greatness can be directly tied to these craftsmen and their willingness to break cinematic rules and create new rules at the behest of a neophyte who just happened to have greatness within him. Why wasn't the film a huge hit when it was released? Well, Citizen Kane is a thinly disguised biography of newspaper mogul William Randolph Hearst, at the time the most powerful man in the United States. Many scholars have argued that Kane is also a reflection of Welles himself, but it was Hearst and his newspapers that didn't want the film to see the light of day. After seeing an early version of the film, Hollywood columnist Hedda Hopper informed Hearst of the negative depiction and began using her column as a cudgel against the film. Fearing reprisals in the form of restrictive media coverage and advertising space for all of Hollywood's movies, the major studios offered RKO more than $800,000, essentially the cost of production, to purchase the film and destroy it. RKO refused. Hearst's papers then set in motion a personal smear campaign against Welles to demean the film's creator while also lessening public perception of the film itself. Even as press screenings and private showings were garnering positive word of mouth, the threats intensified and finally included theaters themselves, both those owned by the studios and independents. Showing the film would have long-lasting and devastating implications for owners, and most decided the risk was too great. When the film released, its footprint was too small to have a box office impact. Even the 9 Oscar nominations were not enough to lift sagging ticket sales, and RKO pulled the film from release and placed it in their vault. When each of Citizen Kane's nominations were read at the Oscars, a smattering of boos could be heard in the theater, and its lone win was for screenplay that was shared by Mankiewicz and Welles and was largely attributed as a reflection of Hollywood's love for the self-destructive Mankiewicz. Finally, why do film scholars and film fans alike still want to talk about Citizen Kane? Well, when TV stations began to license movies in the 1950s, many forgotten or overlooked films began to emerge as substantial. But it was praise from the French film journal Cahiers de Cinéma that vaulted Citizen Kane into the conversation as the best film of all time. When the 1960 Sight and Sound Critics Poll voted Kane the best film of all time, it opened up an entirely new avenue of discussion and exploration of the film. That Citizen Kane remained at the top of that list until 2012, when it was displaced by Hitchcock's Vertigo, is a testament to the many layers of the film itself, as well as the mythology around its creator, the production, and its aftermath. Selecting the greatest film of all time is a highly subjective endeavor, and to some viewers, that very weight weighs down their enjoyment of the film. I choose to enjoy Citizen Kane for what it is, a brilliantly made film filled with innovative visual and aural elements that elevated the art of cinema in its creation, but can still be enjoyed as a good story well told. Please enjoy Citizen Kane any way you choose to. To read a short piece that fills in more of the story of Citizen Kane's production, please go to top10filmlists.com and look under the Reviews tab. Please provide feedback below, and thank you for watching.